The transport shuttle shook as it docked with Harmony's edge. Do-Yun pressed his face against the small window, watching the massive space station grow larger. He had dreamed of this moment for years. First contact with alien species, a chance to study life from other worlds. His hands trembled with excitement. First time in space? Asked Mirai from the seat beside him. She was a security officer, assigned to protect the human research team. Her dark eyes scanned everything with professional caution. First time meeting aliens, Do-Yun admitted. I studied xenobiology for 10 years, but seeing it in person is different. The shuttle doors hissed open. The station's air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet Do-Yun could not name. The corridor stretched ahead, walls made of materials that seemed to shift colors in the light. Other beings walked past. Some had too many legs, others floated. One creature looked like a walking tree. Do-Hyun's heart pounded. This was real. Humanity was truly part of something bigger now. A tall insect-like alien waited for them in the reception area. Its body was covered in dark green armor, and its multiple eyes watched the humans without blinking. When it spoke, a small device on its chest translated the clicking sounds into words. I am Elder Vothram. I welcome the human delegation to Harmony's Edge. The voice from the translator was flat and emotionless. You will follow protocols. You will obey all warnings. Your species is new here. Many dangers exist that you do not understand. Jiwoo, the youngest member of their team, whispered to Do-Yun. Friendly guy, isn't he? Elder Vothram's head turned sharply toward Jiwoo. Friendship is earned through survival. First, you must learn what will kill you. The orientation room was circular, with seats arranged in rings. Holographic projectors floated in the center. Other alien species sat scattered throughout the room, all keeping distance from each other. The humans sat together, suddenly feeling very small and very vulnerable. There are many rules on this station, Elder Vothram began. But one rule is absolute. You must never, under any circumstances, approach the Vryn cubs. The hologram flickered to life. It showed a creature that looked almost like the big cats from Earth, but much larger. The adult Vryn stood at least 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in silver-blue fur. When it extended its claws, they gleamed like knives made of metal. The creature's eyes glowed with intelligence. The Vryn are apex predators, Elder Vothram continued. They come from a world where they had no natural enemies. Their strength can tear through starship hulls. Their speed makes them nearly impossible to escape. They hunt in packs with perfect coordination. Mirai leaned forward, her professional interest engaged. If they're so dangerous, why are they allowed on the station? Because they are also members of the Galactic Coalition. They have rights. They have territories. Elder Vothram's translator made a sound that might have been a sigh. And because no one has ever successfully told the Vryn what to do. The hologram changed. Now it showed smaller versions of the creatures. The cubs were the size of large dogs covered in fluffy fur. They looked almost cute. One of them tumbled over its own paws in the projection. Do not be fooled by appearances, Elder Vothram warned. The cubs are more dangerous than the adults, not because of their strength, but because of what happens when you approach them. The next hologram made Do-Hyun's stomach turn. It showed the aftermath of what Elder Vothram called a cub incident. A section of the station had been torn apart. Blood stained the walls. The recording showed emergency teams recovering bodies. When any species approaches a Vryn cub, every adult Vryn within sensor range enters a berserker state. They will destroy anything between them and their young. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped. 17 species have lost members this way. The cubs roam freely through certain sections of the station. If you see one, you must retreat immediately and alert station security. Why do the cubs roam free if it's so dangerous? Do-Yun asked. Elder Vothram's many eyes focused on him. Because the alternative is war. The Vryn will not cage their young. We have learned to adapt. Proximity alarms warn us when cubs are near. Entire sections seal off when they pass through. We survive by avoiding them. The orientation continued for another hour. Elder Vothram showed them maps of safe zones, explained emergency procedures, and repeated the warning about the cubs 3 more times. By the end, every human in the room understood one thing clearly: stay away from the Vryn. That evening, Do-Hyun sat in his assigned quarters, reviewing data files on his tablet. The room was small but comfortable, with a window showing the stars outside. He pulled up everything the Coalition database had on the Vrin species. The files were frustratingly incomplete. Most species refused to study the Vrin closely. The information available was basic: carnivorous diet, pack-based social structure, highly territorial, extreme protective instincts regarding offspring. Do-hyun read the section about the berserker response again. According to the records, no one understood why the Vrin reacted so violently when other species approached their cubs. Some scientists theorized it was genetic programming from their evolution. Others believed it was a cultural taboo. The Vrin themselves never explained it because they never spoke about it. Something bothered Do-hyun. He had studied animal behavior on Earth for years before joining the xenobiology program. He knew about protective instincts in parents. Lions, bears, elephants, all of them defended their young aggressively. But this was different. The Vrin response seemed too extreme, too panicked. What if it was not aggression at all? What if it was fear? Do-hyun shook his head. He was tired from the journey. His imagination was running away from him. Every species in the galaxy, hundreds of different civilizations, all agreed on one thing: avoid the Vrin cubs. They could not all be wrong. His tablet beeped. It was a message from Mirai. Team meeting tomorrow at 800. Stay in designated human zones. Do not explore alone. Do not ignore proximity alarms. I want everyone back home alive. That's an order, Do-hyun smiled. Mirai was protective of the team, almost like a mother bear with her cubs. He understood that instinct. It was universal, wasn't it? The need to keep others safe. He looked out the window at the unfamiliar stars. Somewhere on this station, Vrin cubs were wandering through corridors, small fluffy creatures that everyone feared. Creatures that no one was allowed to help if they got into trouble. Creatures that apparently had no friends in the entire galaxy, except their own kind. Do-hyun felt a strange sadness at that thought. Then he felt foolish for feeling sad about alien predators that could kill him without trying. He shut down his tablet and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would be his first full day on Harmony's Edge. He would attend meetings, collect samples, meet other researchers. He would follow all the rules and stay safe. The proximity alarm in his room was a small device mounted near the door. Its light glowed green, meaning no cubs were nearby. Do-hyun stared at it for a moment, then forced himself to look away. Stay away from the cubs. Everyone knew that. It was the most important rule. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried not to think about small, fluffy creatures wandering alone through a station where everyone feared them. The transport shuttle shook as it docked with Harmony's Edge. Do-hyun pressed his face against the small window, watching the massive space station grow larger. He had dreamed of this moment for years. First contact with alien species, a chance to study life from other worlds. His hands trembled with excitement. First time in space? Asked Mirai from the seat beside him. She was a security officer, assigned to protect the human research team. Her dark eyes scanned everything with professional caution. First time meeting aliens, Do-hyun admitted. I studied xenobiology for 10 years, but seeing it in person is different. The shuttle doors hissed open. The station's air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet Do-hyun could not name. The corridor stretched ahead, walls made of materials that seemed to shift colors in the light. Other beings walked past. Some had too many legs, others floated. One creature looked like a walking tree. Do-hyun's heart pounded. This was real. Humanity was truly part of something bigger now. A tall insect-like alien waited for them in the reception area. Its body was covered in dark green armor, and its multiple eyes watched the humans without blinking. When it spoke, a small device on its chest translated the clicking sounds into words. I am Elder Vothram. I welcome the human delegation to Harmony's Edge. The voice from the translator was flat and emotionless. You will follow protocols. You will obey all warnings. Your species is new here. Many dangers exist that you do not understand. Jiwoo, the youngest member of their team, whispered to Do-hyun. Friendly guy, isn't he? Elder Vothram's head turned sharply toward Jiwoo. Friendship is earned through survival. First, you must learn what will kill you. The orientation room was circular, with seats arranged in rings. Holographic projectors floated in the center. Other alien species sat scattered throughout the room, all keeping distance from each other. The humans sat together, suddenly feeling very small and very vulnerable. There are many rules on this station, Elder Vothram began. But one rule is absolute. You must never, under any circumstances, approach the Vrin cubs. The hologram flickered to life. It showed a creature that looked almost like the big cats from Earth, but much larger. The adult Vryn stood at least 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in silver-blue fur. When it extended its claws, they gleamed like knives made of metal. The creature's eyes glowed with intelligence. The Vryn are apex predators, Elder Vothram continued. They come from a world where they had no natural enemies. Their strength can tear through starship hulls. Their speed makes them nearly impossible to escape. They hunt in packs with perfect coordination. Mireille leaned forward, her professional interest engaged. If they're so dangerous, why are they allowed on the station? Because they are also members of the Galactic Coalition. They have rights. They have territories. Elder Vothram's translator made a sound that might have been a sigh, and because no one has ever successfully told the Vryn what to do. The hologram changed. Now it showed smaller versions of the creatures. The cubs were the size of large dogs covered in fluffy fur. They looked almost cute. One of them tumbled over its own paws in the projection. Do not be fooled by appearances, Elder Vothram warned. The cubs are more dangerous than the adults, not because of their strength, but because of what happens when you approach them. The next hologram made Do-hyun's stomach turn. It showed the aftermath of what Elder Vothram called a cub incident. A section of the station had been torn apart. Blood stained the walls. The recording showed emergency teams recovering bodies. When any species approaches a Vryn cub, every adult Vryn within sensor range enters a berserker state. They will destroy anything between them and their young. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped. 17 species have lost members this way. The cubs roam freely through certain sections of the station. If you see one, you must retreat immediately and alert station security. Why do the cubs roam free if it's so dangerous? Do-hyun asked. Elder Vothram's many eyes focused on him. Because the alternative is war. The Vryn will not cage their young. We have learned to adapt. Proximity alarms warn us when cubs are near. Entire sections seal off when they pass through. We survive by avoiding them. The orientation continued for another hour. Elder Vothram showed them maps of safe zones, explained emergency procedures, and repeated the warning about the cubs 3 more times. By the end, every human in the room understood one thing clearly: stay away from the Vryn. That evening, Do-hyun sat in his assigned quarters, reviewing data files on his tablet. The room was small but comfortable, with a window showing the stars outside. He pulled up everything the Coalition database had on the Vryn species. The files were frustratingly incomplete. Most species refused to study the Vryn closely. The information available was basic: carnivorous diet, pack-based social structure, highly territorial, extreme protective instincts regarding offspring. Do-hyun read the section about the berserker response again. According to the records, no one understood why the Vryn reacted so violently when other species approached their cubs. Some scientists theorized it was genetic programming from their evolution. Others believed it was a cultural taboo. The Vryn themselves never explained it because they never spoke about it. Something bothered Do-hyun. He had studied animal behavior on Earth for years before joining the xenobiology program. He knew about protective instincts in parents. Lions, bears, elephants, all of them defended their young aggressively. But this was different. The Vryn response seemed too extreme, too panicked. What if it was not aggression at all? What if it was fear? Do-hyun shook his head. He was tired from the journey. His imagination was running away from him. Every species in the galaxy, hundreds of different civilizations, all agreed on one thing: avoid the Vryn cubs. They could not all be wrong. His tablet beeped. It was a message from Mireille. Team meeting tomorrow at 800. Stay in designated human zones. Do not explore alone. Do not ignore proximity alarms. I want everyone back home alive. That's an order, Do-hyun smiled. Mireille was protective of the team, almost like a mother bear with her cubs. He understood that instinct. It was universal, wasn't it? The need to keep others safe. He looked out the window at the unfamiliar stars. Somewhere on this station, Vryn cubs were wandering through corridors, small fluffy creatures that everyone feared. Creatures that no one was allowed to help if they got into trouble. Creatures that apparently had no friends in the entire galaxy, except their own kind. Do-hyun felt a strange sadness at that thought. Then he felt foolish for feeling sad about alien predators that could kill him without trying. He shut down his tablet and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would be his first full day on Harmony's Edge. He would attend meetings, collect samples, meet other researchers. He would follow all the rules and stay safe. The proximity alarm in his room was a small device mounted near the door. Its light glowed green, meaning no cubs were nearby. Do-hyun stared at it for a moment, then forced himself to look away. Stay away from the cubs. Everyone knew that. It was the most important rule. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried not to think about small, fluffy creatures wandering alone through a station where everyone feared them. 3 days passed quietly. Do-hyun and his team settled into their routine on Harmony's Edge. They attended meetings with other researchers, collected biological samples from alien plants in the station's gardens, and carefully stayed within the human-designated zones. The proximity alarms had buzzed twice, warning them when Vrin cubs were nearby. Each time they had retreated to safe areas and waited for the all-clear signal. Jiwoo complained about it during lunch on the 3rd day. "We came all this way to study alien life, and we spent half our time hiding from the most interesting species on the station." "The most dangerous species," Mireille corrected. She was eating something that looked like noodles but smelled like flowers. Station food took getting used to. "Interesting doesn't matter if you're dead." Do-hyun agreed with Mireille, but he understood Jiwoo's frustration. Yesterday, he had seen a Vrin cub from a distance through a transparent barrier. The small creature had been playing with something, batting it back and forth between its paws. It looked so much like a kitten that Do-hyun's heart had ached. Then an adult Vrin had appeared, scooped up the cub and carried it away. The adult's eyes had fixed on Do-hyun for just a moment. Even through the barrier, even from 50 meters away, Do-hyun had felt the warning in that gaze. The alarm started during Do-hyun's afternoon rest period. Not the proximity alarm. This was different. This was the emergency evacuation signal. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A synthetic voice repeated the same message in multiple languages. "Hull breach in storage section 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Automated containment in progress." Do-hyun grabbed his emergency kit and ran into the corridor. Other humans were already there, looking confused and frightened. Mireille appeared, her uniform half-fastened, clearly having dressed in a hurry. "What happened?" someone asked. "Don't know. Move toward the designated safe zones, now." Mireille started herding people down the corridor. Do-hyun followed, but something made him glance at a monitor panel on the wall. It showed a schematic of the station. Section 7 was marked in red, with animated warnings showing atmosphere venting into space. His scientific training kicked in automatically. He studied the diagram, noting the blast patterns, the location of the breach. Then he saw them. 2 small dots on the monitor, marked with a special symbol he had learned to recognize. Vrin cubs. They were in Section 7, right where the breach had occurred. "Mireille," he called out. "There are cubs in the danger zone." She glanced at the monitor and her face went pale. "Station security will handle it. We need to keep moving," but Do-hyun knew that was wrong. He had read the protocols. No one would go near those cubs. The risk was too great. Station security would monitor them, track them, but they would not mount a rescue. They would rather let the cubs die than trigger a berserker response from the adults. He accessed the public security feed on the monitor. The video showed Section 7 from multiple angles. Debris floated through the corridors as atmosphere leaked out. And there, in one camera view, he saw them. 2 small cubs huddled together near a damaged cargo container. They were not moving. One of them was chirping, making high-pitched sounds of distress. Around Do-hyun, other aliens were gathering to watch the monitors. He heard them speaking in various languages, most of which his translator could not decode. But he understood the tone. They were talking about the cubs. Some sounded concerned. Most sounded resigned. "The bulkheads will close in 5 minutes," someone said in translated speech. "The cubs will be sealed in the damaged section." "Better than triggering the adults," another voice responded. "If we send anyone in there, the whole Vrin pack will go mad. We could lose dozens of people." Do-hyun's hands clenched into fists. He watched the monitor as one cub tried to stand, then collapsed. The other one was pressing against it, trying to provide warmth or comfort. They were children. Small, scared children trapped in a disaster. He thought about Elder Vothrum's warnings. He thought about the holographic images of torn bodies and destroyed sections. He thought about every piece of training and common sense that told him to stay away. Then he thought about watching 2 small creatures die, while everyone stood around making excuses. I need a vac suit, Do-hyun said quietly. Mirai grabbed his arm. No, absolutely not. Don't even think about it. They're children. They're alien predators. They're dying. Mirai's grip tightened. You'll die too, and then the adults will go berserk anyway, and more people will die. You can't save them. Do-hyun met her eyes. Maybe not. But I have to try. He pulled away from her and ran toward the nearest emergency equipment station. Behind him he heard Mirai shouting, heard other voices joining hers. He ignored them all. His hands worked on autopilot, pulling out a vac suit, checking the seals, activating the oxygen supply. Mirai caught up with him at the airlock entrance. This is insane. This is suicide. Lock it behind me, Do-hyun said. He stepped into the airlock and initiated the inner door closure. Through the window he saw Mirai's face, saw her mouth moving as she shouted something he could not hear. The inner door sealed. The outer door opened. Do-hyun entered Section 7. The artificial gravity was failing. Debris floated everywhere, tumbling through the air in slow motion. Through his helmet, Do-hyun could hear the hiss of escaping atmosphere. His suit's display showed external pressure dropping rapidly. He had maybe 4 minutes before the automatic bulkheads would seal this entire section off permanently. He pushed off from a wall, using the handholds to pull himself forward. His xenobiology training had included basic zero-gravity movement, but training was different from reality. He bounced off a floating cargo container, corrected his trajectory, kept moving. The Cubs were in Corridor 7B. Do-hyun checked his suit's navigation display. 30 meters ahead, then 20, then 10. He rounded a corner and saw them. They were smaller than he expected. Even hunched together, they were only about the size of a human 10-year-old. Their silver-blue fur was puffed up, making them look bigger than they were. As Do-hyun approached, both Cubs turned toward him. Their eyes were huge and golden. Their small ears pressed flat against their heads. One of them hissed, showing tiny fangs. The other one made that chirping sound again, frightened and alone. Do-hyun stopped moving. He held perfectly still, floating in the low gravity. He had studied Earth's big cats extensively. He knew body language, knew how to appear non-threatening. Slowly, very slowly, he extended one hand toward them, palm open. It's okay, he said softly, knowing they could not understand his words but hoping his tone would communicate what language could not. I'm here to help. The Cubs pressed closer together. The hissing continued, but they did not run. Do-hyun counted seconds in his head. 3 minutes until the bulkhead sealed. He needed to move faster, but if he frightened the Cubs, they would scatter and he would never reach them in time. Please, he whispered. Let me help you. One of the Cubs, the one making the chirping sounds, took a small step toward him. Just one step. Its small paw reached out, touching the air near Do-hyun's extended hand. That was enough. Do-hyun pulled himself forward carefully, avoiding sudden movements. When he got close enough, he wrapped his arms around both Cubs, pulling them against his chest. They struggled for a moment, then went still. He could feel them trembling through his suit. I've got you, he said. You're safe now. 2 minutes. Do-hyun pushed off from the wall, heading back toward the airlock. The Cubs were heavier than they looked, awkward to carry in low gravity. One of them made a soft mewing sound. The other pressed its face against Do-hyun's chest. 1 minute. The bulkheads were already moving, massive metal doors sliding closed throughout the section. Do-hyun kicked off harder, using all his strength. Debris bounced off his helmet. His oxygen alarm started beeping. 30 seconds. The airlock was ahead, door still open. Through the window he could see faces watching him. Mirai was there, her hands pressed against the glass. 15 seconds. Do-hyun threw himself forward, Cubs clutched tight. He cleared the threshold just as the bulkhead slammed shut behind him. The impact knocked him against the airlock wall, but he kept his grip on the Cubs. The inner door opened. Do-hyun tumbled out into the corridor, still holding the Cubs. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath inside his helmet. Then he looked up. Station security surrounded him, weapons drawn, but the weapons were not pointed at him. They were pointed outward, down the corridor. And from somewhere in the distance, Do-hyun heard a sound that made his blood freeze, a roar that shook the station's superstructure. The adult Vrin were coming. The sound was unlike anything Do-hyun had ever heard. It started as a low rumble that vibrated through the station's floors and walls, then rose into a roar that made his bones shake. Other aliens in the corridor were already running. scrambling over each other to get away. Even the station's security began backing up, their weapons suddenly seeming very small and useless. Do-hyun struggled to his feet, still holding both cubs. They had stopped trembling and were now making soft chirping sounds. Through his helmet he could barely hear them, but he felt the vibrations against his chest. Mirai stepped in front of him. Her weapon was raised, but her hands were shaking. "Get behind me," she said, her voice tight with fear. "No," Do-hyun replied. He moved around her, positioning himself in the center of the corridor. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, but he could not run, not while holding the cubs, and he would not drop them. The thunder of heavy footsteps grew louder. 4 massive shapes rounded the corner at a full sprint. Adult Vryn, each one standing 3 meters tall, their bodies pure muscle and power. Their silver-blue fur stood on end. Their claws, extended fully, scraped sparks from the metal floor. Their eyes blazed with that infamous light Elder Vothram had warned about. The berserker rage, they were magnificent and terrifying. Do-hyun had never seen anything move so fast at such size. They covered the distance of the corridor in seconds. 20 meters away, 15, 10. This was how he died, Do-hyun thought with strange clarity. He had always wondered what his last moments would be like. He had not expected them to happen while holding alien children. The lead Vryn, a massive creature with a scarred face and torn left ear, reached the 5-meter mark. Do-hyun could see every detail now. The individual hairs in its fur, the muscles bunching beneath its skin, the claws that could tear him apart without effort. Do-hyun did not run, did not close his eyes. Instead, he extended his arms, holding both cubs outward toward the approaching Vryn, offering them back, returning them to their family. "I did not hurt them," he said, knowing the words did not matter, knowing he was about to die. "They're safe. I promise they're safe." The lead Vryn skidded to a halt so suddenly that the others crashed into it from behind. The 4 adults tangled together for a moment, a pile of massive bodies and flashing claws. Then the leader extracted itself and dropped low, its body pressed close to the ground. The roaring stopped. In its place came a different sound, a deep rhythmic rumbling that Do-hyun felt more than heard. The scarred Vryn moved forward slowly, its eyes still fixed on Do-hyun, but the light in them had changed. It no longer looked like fury. It looked like something else. Something Do-hyun could not quite identify. The other 3 adults formed a semicircle behind their leader, but they did not advance. They stayed back, watching, waiting. The lead Vryn reached Do-hyun. Up close, the creature was even more massive than Do-hyun had realized. Its head alone was as large as Do-hyun's entire torso. Its breath, when it huffed softly, fogged the faceplate of his helmet. Then, with impossible gentleness, the Vryn opened its mouth and carefully lifted one of the cubs from Do-hyun's arms. The cub mewed softly as massive jaws, filled with teeth that could crush bone, closed carefully around its small body. The Vryn lifted the cub and placed it on its own back, where the small creature nestled into the thick fur. Another adult Vryn approached. This one moved even more carefully, watching Do-hyun's face as if checking for any sign of threat. When Do-hyun remained still, the second adult gently took the other cub, transferring it to safety. Do-hyun's arms felt suddenly empty. He stood there, helmet still sealed, unsure what to do next. The protocol said the Vryn would attack. The history said no one survived approaching the cubs. But here he was, alive, watching the adult Vryn check their young for injuries. Then the scarred leader turned back to Do-hyun. It took one step forward, closing the distance between them. Do-hyun's breath caught in his throat. This was it. He had saved the cubs, they were safe now, and the Vryn would finish him anyway. But the massive creature did not attack. Instead, it lowered its enormous head and pressed it firmly against Do-hyun's chest, nearly knocking him backward. The rumbling sound intensified, vibrating through Do-hyun's entire body. The Vryn held the position for several long seconds, its eyes half closed. It took the station's translation system a moment to process the sound. When it did, a synthetic voice spoke through the corridor's speakers, translating the Vryn's deep rumble into words. "Thank you. You saved Pak Young. You honored. You brave." Do-hyun reached up with one shaking hand and touched the Vryn's scarred head. The fur was softer than it looked, The rumbling continued, and Do-hyun realized it was purring. This enormous predator, this apex hunter that the entire galaxy feared, was purring like an Earth cat. "You're welcome," Do-hyun whispered. The Vryn pulled back, gave Do-hyun one last long look, then turned and walked away. The other adults followed, the cubs riding safely on their backs. The pack disappeared around the corner, their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. The corridor erupted into chaos. Aliens who had been hiding emerged from doorways. Station security lowered their weapons, looking confused. Mirai grabbed Do-hyun's shoulders, checking him for injuries, demanding to know if he was hurt. "I'm fine," Do-hyun said. His voice sounded far away, as if someone else was speaking. "I'm okay," but he was not okay. His entire body was shaking. His knees gave out and he sat down hard on the floor. Mirai crouched beside him, helping him remove his helmet. The station air felt cold against his face. "What just happened?" Jiwoo asked, appearing from somewhere in the crowd. "You should be dead." "Every record says you should be dead." Do-hyun looked at his hands. They were trembling. "I don't know. They didn't attack. They just took their cubs and left." Elder Vothram pushed through the crowd. The insect-like alien's many eyes focused on Do-hyun with an intensity that felt uncomfortable. In 1,000 years of Vryn presence on coalition stations, no one has ever approached their cubs and survived. 47 beings have died in such encounters. You are the 48th to try. "You are the first to live. Why?" Do-hyun asked. "What did I do differently?" Elder Vothram's translator made that sighing sound again. "That is what we must discover. Station logs will be reviewed. Video evidence will be analyzed. The Vryn pack leaders have requested a formal meeting. They wish to speak with you directly." Over the next few hours, Do-hyun found himself at the center of unprecedented attention. Station officials reviewed security footage from every angle. Alien researchers asked him countless questions about what he had felt, what he had thought, why he had made each decision. Some aliens looked at him with admiration. Others looked at him like he was dangerously insane. The human diplomatic team arrived, led by Ambassador Young-soo. He was a careful man, known for thinking several steps ahead in any negotiation. He listened to Do-hyun's account of events, watched the video evidence, and then sat in silence for a long time. "Do you understand what you've done?" Young-soo finally asked. "I saved 2 children," Do-hyun replied. "You changed our relationship with the most dangerous species in known space." Young-soo rubbed his temples. "The Vryn have requested a formal meeting. Not with the coalition, not with station leadership. With humans, specifically with you. The meeting was arranged for the following day in a neutral conference room." Do-hyun spent the night unable to sleep, replaying the events over and over. The feel of the cubs in his arms. The sight of the adult Vryn charging toward him. That moment when death seemed certain, and then became something else entirely. When morning came, Do-hyun dressed in his formal uniform and followed Young-soo to the conference room. Mirai insisted on coming as security. Jiwoo came as well, claiming he wanted to document the historic moment. In truth, Do-hyun suspected they were all just terrified of what might happen next. The conference room had been modified. The ceiling had been raised to accommodate the Vryn's height. The furniture had been replaced with platforms more suitable for their body shape. And in the center of the room stood the scarred leader and 3 other adult Vryn. The cubs were there too, playing in the corner under the watchful eyes of another adult. When they saw Do-hyun, both cubs chirped excitedly and bounded toward him. The adult Vryn did not stop them. The cubs reached Do-hyun and pressed against his legs, purring. Do-hyun knelt down and scratched behind their ears. They pushed into his hands, making happy sounds. Behind him, he heard Young-soo make a strangled noise. The scarred Vryn leader approached slowly. This close, in better light, Do-hyun could see that the creature was old. Its muzzle showed gray fur. The scars were deep and numerous. This was a being that had survived many battles. The translation device activated as the Vryn spoke. Its command of galactic standard was broken, heavily accented but understandable. "You human, you did something. No other species do this thing." "I couldn't let children die," Do-hyun said simply. The Vryn tilted its head. "Children? You say pack young are children? Same word you use for human young. Yes, you protect pack young. Not your pack, not your species. Still protect. This is truth?" Do-hyun thought about how to answer. "On my world, protecting children is important. All children. even children that aren't human. News traveled fast through the galaxy. Within a day, every coalition station knew about the human who had saved Vryn cubs. Within a week, the story had spread to every member species. Reactions varied wildly. Some species celebrated humanity's bravery. Others questioned whether it was bravery or foolishness. A few expressed concern about what this new alliance might mean. Ambassador Soman arrived at Harmony's Edge 10 days after the incident. She was older than Youngsu, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had negotiated humanity's entry into the Galactic Coalition 15 years ago. Now she had to navigate something even more complex. "They want to come with us," Youngsu told her during a private briefing. "Vryn packs have formally requested permission to post members on human vessels and stations. They claim it's for mutual protection." Soman studied the reports on her tablet. "But it's more than that. Yes, they're choosing us as allies, partners. The word they use translates roughly as pack bond. It's a relationship deeper than any standard coalition alliance." Soman looked out the window at the station's docking area. A Vryn transport ship had arrived that morning carrying another pack. Word was spreading among the Vryn. Humanity was no longer off limits. What's the response from the coalition? Mixed. The trade guilds see economic opportunities. The military councils are nervous about humans having access to Vryn warriors. And the Elder Council? Youngsu paused. Elder Vothram has called for a formal review. Some members are arguing that we've upset 1,000 years of careful balance. Because we saved children. Soman's voice was dry. How terrible of us. Meanwhile, in the human section of the station, something remarkable was happening. The Vryn pack, led by the scarred leader, whose name the translator rendered as Broken Claw, had moved into adjacent quarters. At first, the humans had been nervous. Having apex predators as neighbors took adjustment. But the Vryn seemed determined to prove themselves as allies. Doyun found himself at the center of this new relationship. The 2 cubs he had saved followed him everywhere. The adult Vryn had explained, through halting translation, that the cubs had imprinted on him. It was a biological response, not unlike how some Earthbirds imprinted on whoever they saw first after hatching. For Vryn cubs, the imprinting was based on who they trusted to protect them in danger. "You are pack now," Broken Claw told Do-hyun. "Cubs choose you. We accept choice. You protect cubs. We protect you. This is way a pack." The cubs' names were too complex for human vocal cords. Do-hyun ended up calling them Blue and Silver, after the patterns in their fur. Blue was curious and bold, always exploring. Silver was quieter, more cautious, but incredibly affectionate. Both of them played with the humans as if they had known them their entire lives. Jiwoo spent hours documenting their behavior. "This is incredible," he said, watching Blue bat at a floating sphere in low gravity while Silver climbed onto Do-hyun's shoulders. "No one has ever observed Vryn cubs this closely. Look at their social structure. They learn through play, just like human children, and they're so expressive." Mireille had warmed up to the cubs more slowly, but even she admitted they were endearing. "They're like really large, really dangerous kittens," she said, scratching Silver behind the ears. "How is it possible that the entire galaxy was too scared to notice how cute they are?" "Because the entire galaxy was too busy being terrified of the adults," Do-hyun replied. And he understood that fear. The adult Vryn were intimidating even when friendly. Broken Claw could barely fit through standard doorways. Its claws left scratches in the metal floors when it walked. Its voice, even in normal conversation, sounded like distant thunder. But as days passed, the humans learned to read Vryn body language. A lowered head meant respect. Ears forward meant alertness. A low rumble was contentment, a purr of satisfaction. And the way Broken Claw watched over the cubs with such obvious love and care reminded Do-hyun of human parents with their own children. One evening, Do-hyun and Broken Claw shared a meal. The humans had set up a common area where both species could gather. Broken Claw ate raw meat that the station provided, while Do-hyun had something that claimed to be rice and vegetables. The cubs wrestled in the corner, tumbling over each other, chirping and growling. "May I ask a personal question?" Do-hyun said. Broken Claw's ears swiveled toward him. "Ask. Why did the Vryn allow other species to think you were dangerous? Why not explain about the fear, about wanting to protect the cubs?" Broken Claw was silent for a long time. When it spoke, its voice was quieter than usual. "Long ago, before Coalition, Vryn meet other species. We show them cubs we trust. Other species see cubs as valuable, rare, something to take and sell. They try to steal pack young. The Vrin's claws extended involuntarily, scraping the table. We fight. We kill those who try to take cubs, but they keep trying. Different species, same greed. So we change. We make cubs seem dangerous. We make other species fear to come close. Fear protects cubs better than trust. But you were waiting, Do-Yun said, understanding. Waiting for a species that would prove they could be trusted. Yes, we wait for species that see cub in danger and think only, must save, not must avoid. We wait long time. Broken Claw's massive head turned toward Do-Hyun. You show humans have right. What is word priority? You show humans put protecting young above protecting self. Is that really so rare? Do-Hyun asked quietly. In Galaxy? Very rare. Most species protect own young. Very few protect all young, even young of other species. This makes humans special. This makes humans worthy of pack bond. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion. Blue had climbed onto a shelf and could not figure out how to get down. It hung there, chirping plaintively. Do-Hyun stood to help, but Broken Claw was faster. The massive Vrin rose smoothly and lifted the cub down with one paw, setting it gently on the floor. Blue immediately scrambled up Broken Claw's leg and onto its back, settling into the fur with a satisfied purr. Broken Claw gave Do-Hyun a look that might have been amusement. Cubs are trouble. Always trouble. But this is why we protect them. They are future. They are hope. Without cubs, pack has no meaning. Over the following weeks, the human-Vrin bond grew stronger. More Vrin packs arrived at the station, each one requesting to meet the humans. It became normal to see Vrin and humans walking together through the corridors. The cubs played with human children who had arrived with their families. Adult Vrin stood guard when humans worked in areas of the station that other species found dangerous, but not everyone approved. Ambassador Soman met with the Coalition Elder Council to address their concerns. Hejun, a human scientist specializing in interspecies relations, accompanied her to provide data and analysis. The council chamber was vast, designed to accommodate hundreds of different species. Elder Vothram presided, along with representatives from the dozen most influential species in the coalition. They sat in judgment as Somin made humanity's case. The bond between humans and Vrin is unprecedented, Elder Thorax said. The mantis-like alien's voice clicked and whistled, translated to words by the chamber's systems. Unprecedented means unpredictable. Unpredictable means dangerous. With respect, Elder Thorax, Soman replied. The Vrin have been members of the coalition for over 1,000 years. They have always followed coalition law. The only thing that has changed is that they now have allies they trust. How is this dangerous? The Vrin are the most powerful military force in known space, another council member said. If they align exclusively with one species, it upsets the balance of power. They're not aligning exclusively with us, Hagen interjected. They're simply opening up to us. The Vrin have stated clearly that they remain loyal to the coalition. They just prefer to work alongside humans when possible. Why? Elder Vothram asked. What makes humanity so special that the Vrin, after a millennium of isolation, suddenly choose you as partners? Soman could have given a diplomatic answer, full of careful words and strategic phrasing. Instead, she told the truth. Because when a human saw Vrin cubs in danger, he didn't think about politics or power or anything except saving them. Because humans believe that protecting children, any children, is the right thing to do regardless of risk. Many species protect young, Elder Thorax countered. Do they? Soman pulled up a holographic display. We've reviewed the 47 incidents where beings approached Vrin cubs before Do-Hyun. In 31 of those cases, the beings were attempting to capture or harm the cubs. In 12 cases, they were studying the cubs as scientific curiosities, with no regard for their well-being. Only 4 were genuine accidents. Not once in Coalition history has anyone approached a Vrin cub simply to help it, because it needed help. The council chamber fell silent. The data was damning. The galaxy's fears had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. By treating Vrin cubs as dangers to avoid, other species had proven themselves untrustworthy. Humanity is not perfect, Soman continued. We're new to the galaxy and we make mistakes. But we come from a world where many species evolved together. We learn to coexist, to protect not just our own young, but the young of other creatures we deemed worth saving. That instinct is built into our culture. The fleet assembled faster than anyone thought possible. 3 human vessels, small and lightly armed, designed for transport rather than combat. 12 Vryn ships, blocky and utilitarian, built to carry packs across space but never meant for war. It was not an impressive armada. It would not intimidate anyone who saw it coming, but it was moving. While the coalition was still debating proper procedures, Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the human transport ship, Gwangju's Pride, watching the jump calculations finalize. Mirai was at the security station, coordinating with the other vessels. Jiwoo was in engineering, making sure their aging ship could handle the stress of multiple jumps. They were not soldiers. They were researchers and scientists and civilians. But they were going anyway. "This is crazy," Mirai muttered, checking weapon systems that had not been fired in years. "We have no combat experience. We're flying into hostile territory with ships held together by hope and spare parts." "The Cubs chose to come," Do-hyun said quietly. Mirai turned to look. Blue and Silver were on the bridge, along with 2 adult Vryn. The Cubs were supposed to stay on the station, but they had somehow gotten aboard every ship that tried to leave without them. After the 3rd attempt to remove them failed, Broken Claw had simply declared that the Cubs were part of the rescue mission. "Cubs know when pack in danger," Broken Claw had explained. "They want to help. We not stop them. This is how Cubs learn to protect pack." Now Silver was curled up near Do-hyun's station, occasionally opening one eye to check that he was still there. Blue was attempting to help the navigation officer by batting at the holographic displays. The adult Vryn watched their young with alert attention, while simultaneously monitoring the fleet's formation through their own systems. The journey took 4 days. They made multiple jumps, pushing their engines to maximum safe speeds and then a little beyond. During that time, humans and Vryn worked together to plan their approach. The Vryn brought knowledge of combat tactics. The humans brought data analysis and strategic coordination. It should not have worked. They barely spoke the same language, had completely different ways of thinking, came from worlds so alien they might as well have been from different universes. But it worked anyway. Because both species understood one fundamental truth: children were in danger, and nothing else mattered. On the 2nd day, they received an updated message from the Daejeon's Hope. Captain Yoonji had managed to send a coded transmission. The hostiles were Rothan mercenaries, working for someone who wanted to make an example of human expansion. They had killed 12 colonists already. They were demanding impossible ransom and threatening to kill more every day until their demands were met. The message included data on the children. 800 of them, ranging from infants to teenagers. They were being held in the cargo bay, separated from their parents. Yoonji had managed to barricade herself and 3 other adults inside with them, but they had no weapons, no way to fight back if the Rothan decided to breach the bay. Do-hyun listened to the message and felt a cold rage building in his chest. These were human children, terrified and alone, held hostage by people who saw them as bargaining chips. And somewhere on that ship, a human captain was standing between armed mercenaries and helpless kids, knowing she would probably die but refusing to abandon them. Broken Claw approached Do-hyun on the bridge. The massive Vryn had to crouch to fit through the doorway, but it moved with careful precision, making sure not to damage anything. It studied Do-hyun's face for a long moment. "You show anger," Broken Claw observed. "Good, anger protects Cubs when used right. But anger must be controlled, must be focused. You understand?" "I understand," Do-hyun said. "We get the children out safely. That's all that matters. Yes, this is good thinking. This is pack thinking." Broken Claw's ears flattened slightly. "Rothan are cowards. They hurt weak ones because they're afraid of strong ones. We show them what happens when they threaten pack cubs. We make them very afraid." On the 4th day, they dropped out of their final jump and saw the situation. 6 Rothan warships surrounded the Daejeon's Hope, keeping it disabled and helpless. The enemy ships were old but functional, bristling with weapons that could tear through the human colony vessel's light armor. Long-range scans showed over 200 Rothan warriors armed and organized. The human Vryn fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. A rational analysis would suggest immediate retreat. Call for coalition reinforcements. Wait for proper military support. Taejin, the human pilot, voiced what everyone was thinking. "We can't win this fight. We not need to win fight," Broken Claw replied. "We need to save Cubs. Different goal, different tactics." The Vryn had explained their plan during the journey. It was insane. It violated every rule of space combat. It required split-second timing and absolute trust between species that had barely known each other for a month, but it was also their only chance. The Rothan commander noticed their approach and opened a communication channel. The translation showed a being covered in thick scales with eyes that held only contempt. "You are the rescue fleet? This is your answer to our demands? 3 human ships and some pack animals?" "Pack animals," Broken Claw repeated, its voice a low rumble that the Rothan could not possibly understand as humor. "He not wrong. We are pack, and pack defends cubs." Before the Rothan could respond, the Vryn ships launched their assault. Not with weapons, they had few weapons. Instead, they launched boarding pods. Dozens of them fired from magnetic accelerators, aimed at precise points on the Rothan warships' hulls. The Rothan laughed. Boarding pods were suicide against defended ships. They prepared to shoot the pods down, confident in their superiority. They had never fought Vryn before. The pods hit the Rothan hulls at tremendous speed, but they did not explode. They were hardened containers designed to survive impacts that would destroy normal boarding craft. They hit, they stuck, and then they opened. Adult Vryn poured out into the vacuum of space, protected by minimal suits that covered only their faces and vital organs. Their claws, harder than most metals, tore through ship hulls like paper. They created breaches, forcing the Rothan to seal sections, dividing their forces. Then the Vryn flooded inside, moving with terrifying speed through the corridors of ships that suddenly felt very small. The Rothan tried to fight back. They had numbers. They had weapons. But they had never faced predators like this. Vryn did not fight like soldiers following doctrine and strategy. They fought like a pack hunting dangerous prey. They coordinated without communication, each one knowing where the others were, what they were doing, how to move together to maximum effect, and they were fighting to protect children. While the Vryn disabled the warships, the human vessels made their move. Taejin piloted the Gwangju's Pride through the chaos, dodging weapons fire, heading straight for the Daejeon's Hope. Hyejin, the medical officer, stood ready with trauma kits and emergency supplies. Mirai coordinated with Yoonji, getting exact locations, planning the extraction. They docked with the colony ship. Mirai led a team aboard, moving fast through corridors filled with frightened colonists. They reached the cargo bay and found Yoonji standing at the entrance, a piece of broken pipe in her hands, her face bloody but defiant. Behind her, 800 children huddled together, the older ones protecting the younger ones. "About time," Yoonji said, lowering her makeshift weapon. "I was running out of ways to keep these kids calm." Then she saw what was behind Mirai. Blue and Silver, the Vryn cubs, had followed the rescue team aboard. The children saw them and reacted with shock. Some screamed, some hid. Many had never seen aliens before, let alone creatures as large and dangerous-looking as Vryn. But Blue and Silver did not care about fear. They bounded into the cargo bay, chirping and purring, moving among the human children with gentle curiosity. And children, being children, responded. Fear turned to fascination. A small human girl, maybe 5 years old, reached out to touch Silver's soft fur. The cub pressed against her hand, purring louder. "They're like giant kitties," the girl said, her tears drying. "Very giant kitties," Yoonji agreed, staring in disbelief. "Very, very giant kitties who are somehow adorable." Outside, the battle was turning. 4 of the 6 Rothan warships were disabled, their crews either dead or surrendering. The remaining 2 tried to run, but Vryn boarding parties had already compromised their engines. It was over in less than an hour. The Rothan, who had terrorized this sector for years, had been defeated by a pack of creatures they had dismissed as animals. But there was one final crisis. A Rothan strike team, cornered and desperate, had broken through Yoonji's barricades and reached the cargo bay. 8 armed warriors, scales scarred from many battles, weapons charged and ready. They saw the human children and decided that if they were going to die, they would take hostages with them. They burst through the doorway, weapons raised, ready to fire into the crowd of defenseless children. Yoonji stepped forward, weaponless, ready to die, protecting the kids. Mirai raised her sidearm, knowing she could not stop all 8 of them before they fired. Hyejin pulled children behind her, shielding as many as she could with her own body. But they were not the first line of defense.